What do we know so far? In 2009, gun dealers in the Phoenix area contacted the ATF to report several individuals who were attempting to purchase for cash large numbers of AK-47 style rifles and other firearms that were preferred by the Mexican drug cartels. Instead of stopping these purchases, the ATF directed the dealers to make the gun sales. The premise was that these guns could be tracked and that this tracking activity might provide valuable information about these cartels. However, no evidence seems to exist that would indicate that an effort was made to track these guns. This operation was named Fast and Furious. In 2010, Border Agent Brian Terry was attacked and murdered by cartel members who were armed with at least 2 AK-47 style rifles that were purchased through Fast and Furious. 2 months later, Immigration and Customs Special Agent Jamie Zapata was attacked and killed in Mexico. 2 guns used in that murder were tied to Fast and Furious. Additional murders of Mexican citizens have been attributed to Fast and Furious weapons. Attorney General Eric Holder has repeatedly denied knowing anything about Fast and Furious. In May of 2011, he testified that he first heard of Fast and Furious just a few weeks before. Yet, documents exist verifying that frequent memos discussing Fast and Furious were addressed to Holder as early as July in the previous year. President Obama has consistently stated that he knew nothing about Fast and Furious. Documents and testimony since indicate that a then national security staffer at the White House named Kevin O'Reilly repeatedly communicated by email and telephone with the ATF agent in charge of Fast and Furious. O'Reilly indicated in one email that he wanted to share information about the case with other national security staffers. Finally, when Congress began to aggressively investigate this illegal program, President Obama invoked executive privilege, effectively burying all the evidence and effectively protecting himself and his puppet, Attorney General Eric Holder. Now, the fact remains that because of our government, guns were sold to these cartels. These cartels are our enemies. These cartels harm Americans. These cartels kill Americans. And they also kill citizens on their side of the border. Scandal number 2. Between March 2012 and the attack on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi, Libya, on September 11th of 2012, the following events have been verified. On at least 5 occasions, U.S. Ambassadors Gene Kretz and Chris Stevens requested additional security because of rising tensions in the area. In April of 2012, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton refused the request for additional security. On at least 2 other occasions, the State Department denied similar requests. During that same period, Ambassador Stevens, State Department official Charlene Lamb, and Regional Security Officer Eric Nordstrom reported the dire security situation in the region to the State Department. During that same period, terrorists attacked the U.S. consulate twice, attacked the Red Cross, and attempted to assassinate the British ambassador. In addition to refusing additional security, the State Department pulled Ambassador Stevens' security detail in August of 2012. The very next month, on September 11, 2012, the U.S. consulate at Benghazi came under attack. The Department of Defense immediately ordered a drone overhead to monitor the situation. This means that the White House had eyes on the incident. Immediately after being informed, President Obama went AWOL and was not seen again until he appeared in the White House Rose Garden the next morning. Only the president could have ordered American personnel into Libya to stop the attack. Because he was unavailable, no action was taken to protect our fellow countrymen, and Stevens and 4 other Americans died. On the day following the attack, CIA Director David Petraeus released a list of talking points that detailed significant facts regarding the attack. One of the key points indicated that it was a terrorist event and that Muslim extremists with ties to al-Qaeda participated in the attack. Yet, when the incident was reported by Susan Rice, U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, she stated that the incident was a spontaneous event that escalated because of a YouTube video that offended the Muslims. When rumors surfaced that the original CIA talking points may have been altered, Jay Carney, White House press secretary and accomplished tap dancer, stated that the only modification was stylistic and that the word consulate was changed to something like diplomatic post or diplomatic posting. Investigators now have 12 versions of the talking points, each more sanitized than the one before. They now have nearly 100 pages of documents that clearly illustrate top-level State Department participation in the changes. Scandal number 3. The IRS admitted that it has, for years, targeted conservative groups for harassment and undue scrutiny. In the ongoing congressional investigation, South Carolina Congressman Trey Gowdy questioned the former IRS Commissioner Doug Shulman. He admitted that he personally took no steps to stop the agency's political targeting of conservative groups, thereby allowing the travesty to continue for years. Then, Lois Lerner, who leads the IRS office that determines which organizations receive tax-exempt status, took the stand and stoically refused to answer questions by invoking the Fifth Amendment. President Obama vowed to get to the bottom of this and placed Attorney General Holder in charge of the investigation. This is hardly comforting since Obama and Holder are the key players in Fast and Furious, our nation's largest and most destructive gun crime to date. Scandal number 4. The Defense Department secretly seized several months of Associated Press reporters' phone records. Freedom of speech and freedom of the press have always been expressly protected in this country. Until now. How can there be a free press if Big Brother is always monitoring? In a hearing just days ago, Holder testified under oath, quote, "In regard to potential prosecution of the press for the disclosure of material, this is not something I've ever been involved in, heard of, or would think would be a wise policy," unquote. We do know that in another case, Holder signed off on the request to subpoena personal emails and other records from Fox News reporter James Rosen. Holder runs the Justice Department for this country. He is the man in charge of making sure that our laws are enforced, and yet he has no respect for the law and apparently no fear of perjury. Scandal number 5. This one seems to have been missed by the press, but it is huge. Recently, the Tea Party, in response to the IRS scandal, called for demonstrations outside of IRS offices across the country. There was no indication that there would be violence or that there was any type of threat. In many cities, armed Homeland Security officers appeared. Emblazoned on the side of their vehicles was Homeland Security in small letters and Police in huge block letters. The 10th Amendment to the Constitution grants all powers to the state except those which are specifically assigned to the federal government or expressly forbidden to the state. Local law enforcement is not a power that is granted to the Fed. It has always been a function of local government. Yet, without invitation, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security appeared on the scene. They were armed, and they stepped on the toes of local law enforcement. When you combine this with reports that the current ammo shortage is due to a 1.6 billion round ammo order by Homeland Security, the implications are frightening. Equally frightening is the fact that all ammo ordered by Homeland Security is of the more expensive and lethal hollow point variety. Finally, Homeland Security trained 70,000 new agents just last year. Are they preparing for war? And if so, against who? The obvious question is, who is behind these scandals? When you look at motive, the answer falls into sharp relief. With regard to Fast and Furious, who is more dedicated to disarming the American people than the Obama administration? Who, more than they, would benefit by planting dirty guns in the hands of criminals and then recovering these guns and blaming their existence on weak gun laws, gun owners, and the NRA? With regard to Benghazi, the presidential election was less than 2 months away. President Obama was riding a tall wave because he had supposedly killed Osama bin Laden and brought al-Qaeda to its knees. Sending additional security forces to Libya would not have supported that claim. Sending troops to stop the attack would not have supported that claim. Acknowledging that it was a terrorist attack would not have supported that claim. Laying low and hoping that this incident would not be noticed was the best hope Obama had that the truth would not leak before the election. Who, more than President Obama, would have benefited by sweeping Benghazi under the rug? When news of the attack surfaced, who, more than President Obama, benefited by changing the talking points and presenting this incident as a spontaneous demonstration that got a little bit out of hand, instead of presenting it for what it was, a terrorist attack? Considering the election just weeks away, who benefited other than President Obama? With regard to the IRS scandal, who fights harder against the Obama administration than conservative, constitutionally based organizations? Who more than these opposed the wasteful and far-reaching Obama policies? Who more than Obama will benefit by delaying or stopping or shutting down these conservative groups? With regard to the Department of Homeland Security, consider recent reactions to proposed and enacted Obama policies. For the first time, governors in many states are openly and forcefully pushing back against Obama programs. For the first time, sheriffs across the country are refusing to enforce laws or proposed laws enacted by Obama or his puppet states. For the first time, common men and women are taking a stand and exclaiming, "Don't tread on me!" Who more than Obama will benefit from having a private army of heavily armed officers who follow his beck and call without regard to the limits of the Constitution? And finally, with regard to the Associated Press scandal, whistleblowers have been the bane of President Obama. Time and time and time again, good people have stepped forward and provided information that was essential to our national security. This information has been key in efforts to understand and address presidential corruption. Who more than Obama will benefit by discovering and identifying whistleblowers and potential whistleblowers? Who more than he will benefit by paying them off, by buying them off, or scaring them off before they open their mouths? The web of presidential secret combinations has spread into and entangled every American life. The web has cost the lives of many good Americans, and it has shattered the lives of their families. This web has endeavored to erase portions of the Constitution and destroy personal liberties. This web places a personal agenda above public safety, the public good, freedom, and truth. This web is evil and divisive and criminal. This web has the power to destroy our nation. But we have the power to destroy the web. When Americans finally decide that they have had enough, when Americans discover the courage to stand up and together join their voices as one, we will prevail. Until then, the web grows stronger. Obama lies louder, Holder shovels faster, and Carney tap dances his fool head off while we fiddle.